Here's the deal. For this build, I had no live edge slabs. I made my own by joining boards and carving the edges. If you can spot the table I'm building within the next 10 seconds, drop its number in the comments and I'll take back everything I've said about resin table rules. I'll swallow my pride, eat my hat, and promise to only build them the so-called proper way. But until then, forget the rules. This is my table, my river. This build began with a simple request. Can you make me a coffee table? But every project is more than that. It's a chance to see what happens when materials, choices, and a little bit of chance collide. And maybe that's the real reason we watch woodworking videos. Not just to admire the finished piece, but to witness the becoming. I started this build with 4 6-foot-long, 8/4-inch walnut boards. I got them from Exotic Woods in Burlington, Ontario. I had them cut down to 4 feet for me, partly because that's the maximum length this coffee table needs, and partly because that's one less job for me. When selecting boards, I went straight for the ones with the most striking grain. 2 were over 10 inches wide, so I'd need to rip them down before milling. One of those was slightly warped, but it had an irresistible crotch figure, that swirling pattern where a main trunk splits into 2. Too beautiful to pass up. The other 2 boards were narrower, 8 inches or less, still solid and ready for milling. Now my 8-inch jointer does a great job flattening, but the fence isn't the most trustworthy. So my usual routine is flatten boards up to 8 inches on it, then switch to my 6-inch jointer to square up the edge and face. If you're wondering how I managed to mill wood in this dusty garage of mine, you can check out the video in the description. It documents my milling process, my reasons, costs, etc. With everything milled and ready, I laid out the boards in the orientation that showed off the best grain flow and glued them up. That warped board needed extra milling to get it flat, but I didn't want to bring all the other boards down to the same thinner thickness just because of that one piece. Instead, during glue-up, I aligned the narrower boards to the top of the others. That way the tabletop surface stays flush and smooth, while the underside picks up a bit of a depression. To me, that's no big deal, but you tell me, would you have handled it differently? Does it break rules? Maybe this is the right moment to explain why I'm building this table in the first place. A friend of mine came over, saw the little resin coffee table I keep in the foyer, and immediately asked if I could make him something similar. But this time with a river of blue running through it. I agreed, of course, and we set some boundaries. About 4 feet long, no wider than 29 inches. The dimensions were easy. The color, though, that was new territory. I've poured plenty of resin before, but usually in black. Subtle and shadowy, or just enough tinted resin to fill the scars and knots of smaller pieces. But a full river in bright blue? That's bolder. That's asking the wood to share the stage instead of keeping all the attention. So part of this build is an experiment. I don't yet know exactly how the walnut and the blue will play together. Maybe they'll clash, maybe they'll harmonize, but that's what excites me. The unknowns, the risks, the possibility of discovering something I wouldn't have imagined if I'd stayed in the safe and familiar. The legs are, in many ways, the simplest part of this build. At first, I pictured box-jointed waterfall walnut legs, similar to the ones I made for my wife's desk. That video's linked in the description if you want to see one of my proudest pieces. But this time, my friend knew exactly what he wanted. Sleek black steel. I pointed him to flowy line and he picked a design that really suits the table. For me, the work here is pretty straightforward. Route a clean recess, drill the holes, set the threaded inserts, and it's done. Strong, reliable, no fuss. And yet I can't help but wonder, would waterfall walnut legs have changed the personality of this table? More warmth, more continuity. Steel or wood? It's a choice that shifts the entire character of the build. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. But here's the thing, these legs remind me of the financial side of life. Steel legs are like low-risk bonds. They don't grab the spotlight, but they're stable. dependable, and keep everything standing. The walnut and the bright blue resin river? That's more like equities. Volatile, eye-catching, capable of both risk and reward. A good table, like a good portfolio, needs both. The quiet stability below and the bold statement above. And that balance, I think that's where the beauty really lies. And maybe this table won't look bad. From here on out, it's the standard woodworking video affair. I finished the table. So maybe it's a good time to change gears and discuss what it is about woodworking videos that draws us in. Sure, part of it is the ASMR. The crisp bite of a chisel shaving away unwanted wood, the steady grind of a drill bit pulling out clean spirals, or the soft resistance before a threaded insert seats perfectly into place. Those little sounds and sensations carry their own kind of satisfaction, almost like the wood is telling you it agrees with what you're doing. But I think the deeper reason we enjoy these videos is that we get to witness something come into being, from start to finish. We see a rough, raw, chaotic pile of boards, and then, through steps, mistakes, corrections, and patience, it becomes a coffee table. And we don't just want to see the end product, we want to see the becoming. But why? Why do things that have a beginning and an end appeal to us so much more than the already finished thing? Seeing a coffee table on a showroom floor is nice, but watching every step of it take shape is magnetic. Maybe it's because our own lives rarely give us that same clarity. Our stories are always in progress, never fully finished. So there's something deeply comforting about a project where you can actually see the arc, from problem to solution, from raw to refined, from nothing to something. I think it's also the same reason we love novels, films, and even financial charts. We don't stare at a stock price frozen in one moment. We look at the graph, the story, the rise and fall that tells us how it got there. Process gives meaning to outcome. So perhaps woodworking isn't just about wood at all. It's a stand in for our need to believe that life, too, is shaping itself into something coherent. That all the rough edges and standing and glue ups we live through are in their own time, leading toward a finished piece. And this brings me to a question I've been circling around. Do we really need a walnut coffee table, or do we simply want one? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, but here's where I've landed. Nobody needs a walnut coffee table. What we do need are places to gather, to rest, to share. The table itself, that's a luxury, a want. We're drawn to walnut because it's beautiful, because it adds warmth to a room, because it makes the ordinary rituals of life feel just a little more special. And that's the freedom in it. If something isn't about necessity, then it doesn't have to follow strict rules. That's why you may have noticed me taking liberties in this build, sculpting the corners in irregular ways, or gluing up boards that didn't perfectly align. I wasn't chasing perfection. I was chasing character. If a piece exists because we want it, then shouldn't it reflect that want in the most personal, individual way possible? So long as it holds together structurally, of course. That's how I see it anyway. But I'd love to know if you agree, or if you think I'm completely off base. And if you think I'm a little out there on the left, that's probably because I'm actually an accountant by trade. About as far from woodworking as you can get. I stumbled into it a few years ago during our home renovation. Our powder room was completely gutted, a blank slate. The contractor threw out some ideas, and somehow I found myself wandering through a lumber store. That was it. Love at first sight. My very first project, a countertop for the powder room sink. My very first resin pour, filling part of that counter with clear resin to mimic a little pool of water spilling out of the sink. And from that moment, I never looked back. So no, I am no expert. I don't know everything, but here's the thing. Neither did any master craftsman when they started. Every one of them picked up wood for the first time, just like I did. Okay, so if you guessed number 6 at the beginning of this video, well, you'd be right. And I'm eating my hat right now. But I'm going to keep making my tables however I want, or however my clients dream them up. Let's see if those so-called rules really mean anything at all. What really makes a resin table a resin table? I've heard it all. The grain's gotta run parallel to the resin, or two live edges must face each other, or some other so-called rule. Honestly, that's all nonsense. A lack of imagination, dressed up as tradition or proper way or correct way. And here's the thing, I don't give a damn. This is my free time, I get to do whatever I want. This table began with a small human request. A friend asked me to make a coffee table for their family, a place to set cups and homework, to lean on after a long day. Now the table's finished. But the work doesn't really end here. A table is never just wood and resin and steel. It becomes part of the rhythm of daily life. It will carry the weight of coffee mugs and late night conversations, of school projects and family celebrations. Over time, it will gather small scratches and stains, each one another layer of memory. Thanks for watching and spending a little time in the shop with me. If you enjoyed this build, the walnut, the blue river, or even just the thought process along the way, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I've got more projects coming, some straightforward, some experimental, and a few that blur the line between both. Drop a comment if you've ever taken a risk with a build that surprised you, or if you think this table would have been better with walnut waterfall legs instead of steel. Until next time, keep building, keep questioning, and don't be afraid to break the rules. And lastly, don't forget to let me know which number you picked.
Oh, it is really good. Oh my god, I love the corners. It looks fantastic. I love the small details in here. It's amazing. Wow.